Hello, designers. This is Marcos Chavez, one of the faculty members for the New York City Design Experience. And I'm making this video to both welcome you and give you a little bit of an inside preview of what we'll be doing as you make your way to New York and attend our 2-week workshop. Like you, I'm very excited about what we'll be working on together and look forward to meeting each and every one of you, and wanted to go through this and give you a chance to begin your experience even before you board your plane and have your bags packed and loaded, and give you an insight of how to get started on the process we'll be doing. And to do that, I want to first, of course, talk about some of our goals for the workshop and get you in the mindset of being able to really get as much as possible out of our time together. And some of the things that I think will be important for what we do together in the workshop is just to start kind of in a really basic way and think about the idea of, and even the goal for yourself, to learn more about who you are and to use this experience in the summertime, leaving your home and meeting new people and taking on a challenge that's design related and being in this great energetic city. It's a time for reflection, and I want to encourage each of you to really have that kind of mindset where you're going to be doing some self-insight gaining and learning about what makes you tick and what holds your interests and how you see yourself in the world and in this career of design. So that's a big important one. But also, as well as yourself, I want to have a big goal of ours be about collaboration and how we work with others and how we not only gain from other designers, but how we contribute to fellow designers. And we'll be a nice small group. And in this collaborative spirit, I want to make sure that we learn to get the most we can out of those who we're working with, and not even see it just as this idea of meeting some new people for a couple of weeks, but seeing it as an opportunity for lifelong friendships. And, you know, who knows, there's so many people in the world, and here you'll be by fate meeting these people from different corners of the world and being in this unique situation in New York City where you're going to work on a project and travel together. So this will be something that should have it be a seed for lifelong friendships, and that's an exciting thing. So let's make that one of our big goals for this workshop. And then getting down to the nitty gritty, many of you signed up here for this idea of like learning more about design and learning more about the branding process. And understanding the branding process is probably the cornerstone goal for our workshop, taking you through a project that will allow us to immerse ourselves in how we create a brand, how we create a design that's rooted in principles and in a process that's going to not only work for this project, but be a process that you can utilize for all the design work you do, and maybe even further, process for how you conduct your life and how you use things like research and understanding and iteration and you know, trying again as a way of having a fulfilling life. So the branding process will be a big part of this. And if anything, for me and for the rest of the team here, I think that the result is great. Everyone having a beautiful design at the end is something we all want and will cheer for and will guide you towards. But I think if anything, it's how we get there that's going to be the most important part. So I want to encourage you to keep an eye on that and really learn about each step that we go through. And then, of course, the identity that is the result of this will be something that will be really super important for us, that you go through a process. You start with that blank sheet of paper, go through the journey of suffering and being uncertain and wondering what's the best way, and then following these steps and through collaboration with your students and the faculty, be able to bit by bit create this finished piece that you and all of us will be proud of and be able to showcase at the end of the workshop. So those are the basic goals that we want to make sure to put at the front of what we're doing in the process. And of course, having a good time. Maybe I should have put that one. Having a good time is going to be key to this as well. So in starting this process, it's always important that the beginning point be really a place where you open your mind and begin to be in listening mode and really try to hear what is it that is the goal of the client or the goal of the person giving you an assignment. We don't have a specific client in this project, but we're going to kind of position the project in a way that that reflects how it would work in a professional environment and what it would be like to be given an assignment. And I kind of want to also remind you that what's key with being a communication professional, being a designer, is this idea of being a person that comes into someone else's world. They come into their world without the kind of like deep understandings that people who are the clients on the other side of the table will have. They'll be, you know, they live it daily. They know a lot, which is good. But they also, I don't want to say they know too much, but they're so into the world that they're part of that sometimes it's hard to see what it is that's right in front of them. And as designers, we come into these teams and we do our best to really be listeners and be the kind of people that can build trust with a client, or even build trust within your own company, within your team, or within your creative director. And a big part of the process for me is this role of being the designer who listens, who builds trust, and then who's able to speak back to a client in a language they understand, while also bringing new insights to them. So in this first part, we just want to quickly talk about what is it that this project is about, and who are we speaking to, and why are we doing this process all together? And we're going to utilize the great city of New York as kind of our maybe in a way our client, or is in our subject matter, and kind of recognize the idea that we're all going to be in the city of New York in the same way that so many, like millions of people in the present and in the past have come there. They've come there for a new experience. They've come to New York City to really like take a shot at making it, you know, or be in a place where the energy is so high and the spirits are so positive, that it's a place where the unexpected could happen. And it's of course about the great history of the city and of the United States, and the kind of historic landmarks, the architecture, the art, the fashion, the food, you know, the arts in general. All those things really are a big part of what defines New York City. But even deeper is the idea of who are the people that are there, what are they about, who are the people that live there, who are the people that come there to visit, who are the people who are there on business, who are the people that make up the whole of the community of New York City, including yourself as you arrive and become part of the whole culture of the city. And this is the sort of landscape that we're interested in and trying to get an understanding about. And in specific, we want you to begin to get an understanding not only of what are the things that you've heard about New York City and the things that New York City is supposed to be, but how do you react? How do you respond to what you see and what you hear and what you feel when you arrive here? And what we want to do with that is kind of lead to this idea of looking at New York City as a global brand, you know, an important global brand for the city and for the country and for the world. And it's fully, you know, it's about having this place that represents something. And what we'll be learning about when it comes to branding, kind of the key takeaway for branding is that branding isn't something that sits on a piece of paper or on a screen or, you know, up on a sign. It's something that actually exists in people's minds. And branding is kind of has a life of its own, because the fact that it lives in people's minds means that there's an aspect of time where branding can change, you know, in the course of minutes or seconds or hours, just based on what people's opinions are of it. So branding is something that is ongoing and continuing, and something that needs cultivating, something that needs direction. And sometimes it's not even in the control of those who are in charge of branding as much as it is the people themselves. It's very kind of democratic. So as a global brand, New York City does have a really strong presence in people's hearts and minds, and of not only Americans but citizens of the world, and has and if you think about what are the things, what are the like cliches almost in a way, because cliches are based on things that are true. So this idea of having a shot for success and happiness, and if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That idea is something that we should begin to look at and think about, and see how we can take the understanding of what the current brand is about, and then try to take it in a direction that we think would be interesting towards a specific goal. And overall, what I want you guys to do as you come here is begin to really look at the visual aspects of the city, and we all have an understanding of it, whether you've been here before or not, right? There's a lot of things that are iconic and emblematic of the city, and those things are important, and those things are, each of you can create a mood board like this easily, and come up with a pretty accurate idea of what New York is like, and that's interesting. That's something that is going to be valuable. But for our assignment with this branding process, we want to kind of find a way to maybe drill down a little further than what you see here, and incorporate kind of your own eyes on the ground towards what New York City is like, and maybe you'll find it's like this, but it's also different in a lot of good ways, maybe positive and negative. And I think what the key to this idea is, in terms of what we're after, is how to kind of gauge and put into action your first impressions. Like the first impression is like kind of a powerful thing, whether you're meeting a person or encountering an experience with the brand. Like, you get a lot of information. So I want you guys to have your eyes and ears open when you arrive. And if it's not your first time, that's okay. That it's you may have been here once or twice or many times. That's still important to get that impression when you arrive, and then begin to document and use your phones and your cameras, and document within your own mind what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, and begin to build your own picture of what New York City is about. So what's the goal overall here? Like, where we want to look at this is sort of like, how can we promote the idea of coming to New York for other people who've never been here before, or maybe people who have been here and have them return. But how do we promote it in terms of tourism is like an obvious thing, but not necessarily limited to tourism. Like, how do we make it attractive to people who might want to consider coming here for college or for university? Or how do we promote it for somebody who's looking to change careers or get a transfer for their job? How do we get people to overall come to New York? And that kind of is the one line goal, like to create a branding campaign that will inspire people to come to New York City, inspire them to take that kind of like leap of faith and join the story of New York and become part of it, and to do it in a way that's going to bring positive change to their own lives and contribute to the community here. And this is not a new idea in terms of like trying to promote the city, not only promote this city, but any city. And New York City, of course, has spent a lot of time and energy. And you, from where you are now, you may have seen another version of what New York's, how it speaks out to people. But there's a legacy of creating communication towards coming to New York City, and of course, not just New York City does this sort of efforts, but cities around the world, or even countries for that matter, will create these kind of branding efforts that seeks to define and speak towards the values of each city. And New York City has got a really rich heritage of this. I don't even have the I Heart New York thing on here because you know that so clearly. But here down in the middle, you'll see that there, and you'll find this in some of the things you encounter, this kind of fat and bubbly new NYC logo that is at the foundation to a lot of the look and feel of the way the city brands itself, at least in an official government way. But there are other efforts that you may or may not see or have seen in terms of posters and visuals that try to encourage people to look at New York City as a destination. So anything you can research or find or remember about this would be helpful to know, just to have a sense of the kind of legacy and heritage of how New York has seen itself in terms of their own branding efforts. So in terms of like the specific assignment and what we'll be doing, I'm just going to read this to make sure I kind of get it right. We spend time as a team working on this, but students will create a brand identity that visualizes New York City through their own individual perspective. Each student will take their own NYC experience as the source of inspiration in creating a design expression that tells the story of what the city means to them or to you, and how that experience is accessible to all young people from around the world when they're visiting the city. So that's kind of the longer version of what we're after in terms of having you guys come here for this like micro moment. And we recognize that's not a lot of time, which is part of the reason why I'm talking to you here before we actually meet. But we want to kind of really take the time you're going to have to arrive in the city, to meet new people, to meet your teammates, to meet the team here at New York Design Experience, and to visit not only tourist sites, but also get to know design professionals and the legacy of the city and how communication design has really inspired New York City in its own way. And then to end up with a visual expression from your own personal perspective of what New York City means to you. So before we meet, as we are doing right now and talking virtually, we want to get you guys rolling and started on this to help build this kind of important foundation that is part of this research and discovery process that happens in a branding process, and take advantage of some of the time we have now, just weeks or so before the workshop begins. And that first part is about strategy and concept development. And we will be doing this when we meet in class, but part of what I want to do is kind of get you guys to each participate in researching and creating some documents that are going to help us get started with a kind of a running start and not spend too much of the time that we're together doing these vital, important things that are part of the branding process that we want to make sure each of you have time to do. So we want to begin by creating a strategy concept deck. And this idea of a deck, when I say a deck, I mean kind of like what I'm showing you here, this presentation. That is, to me, a vital part of what the branding process is. In the end of this deck, this presentation that you make, there will be these visual designs, and those visual designs, you might rightly call those your designs, and they are your designs. But I also want you to think about what this presentation, not only each page that you make, but also when you present them, the way you talk about them, I want you to see that as the design that we're really making, and that this presentation deck is going to be something where you will be making a case for your design. You, like a lawyer in court, you will be telling a story. You will be reflecting back what your assignment was to the persons who gave you the assignment, and then talking about the background of New York City or whatever your topic is in your presentation, showing your inspiration, showing your research, and then having that research become the key elements that inform what your concept is, what your theme is, what your design direction is. Show your design directions, like show the research you make that have the parts that inspire you towards what is it that you actually create. So in a way, you can involve your client in this process, and even more importantly than just involving them, getting their feedback. When we create these kind of strategy concept decks, the first part of this full presentation you'll be making, the goal of it is to show up back to a client after an initial meeting, and then be able to have a review session that doesn't involve showing them designs and asking them to pick which is their favorite. It does, in fact, we typically insist on not having any designs and just showing the research and talking about, you know, their competition or talking about their target audience, and then talking about what's going on out there in terms of other companies, other organizations that have done this in the past. Sometimes it's related. It's like, literally, here's another city that did this campaign, or it's a completely different kind of example that will help inform us from a different perspective of what the direction can be. And in doing that, you are able to first further build trust with your client, where they're not up against the ropes, wondering how they can respond to something that might be a wrong decision. It gets them involved in it. It takes off the pressure of having to see a design, and it gets you to hear back from them. What is it that's connecting? What is it that's important? And usually it gives you really important information so you can go back after your strategy concept development meeting and have a next step in terms of how you begin to create your actual creative designs. So this is the first step. We're going to be beginning the first step of the first step, we'll call it. And in doing that, we want to start with maybe a little bit more of a broader exercise than you would do in a professional design presentation, but one that's actually very vital, and that's about understanding yourself better. And of course, as I speak to each of you virtually here, I know that all of you are different, and all of you in some way are in different parts of your journeys. And maybe you have a really good, deep, thorough understanding of how you define yourself. And maybe you've actually gone through this process before, which is great. Or maybe you don't, and maybe you've been living your life, having experiences, reflecting on them, but maybe never took quite that further step back to say, oh, how do I put all the things that are important to me in one sheet of paper? And how do I really look at where I am as a person, where not only my mind, but my heart is, in terms of what is it that's making me be motivated towards doing good, what motivates me towards what my future is. And we want you to really take that understanding now to heart. And we want to kind of go through an exercise that will map out your personal values and visualize how you see yourself as a personal brand. Let's look at each of us as a brand as individuals. So this is a simple exercise, simple, but it could also be something that you really take to heart and drill in as deep as possible. But basically, this is in two parts. We want you to outline your personal values by creating a mind map diagram. And I'll show you an example of this, a diagram that basically has you at the center, and then around this sort of nucleus will be different aspects of who you are that are, we'll call them attributes, like the attributes that make up you, like the things that you find important, the things that you value, the things that motivate you towards improving yourself. And then with that diagram completed, I want to also, in tandem, have a visual version of it, and a visual version that involves creating a mood board that illustrates your personal values and influences and interests, a kind of a grid of images, and that involves photography or typography or color, that involves images you find, images that are inspiring to you, to be in a micro way, like images that are different parts of the mood board, but in a macro way, when you pull back, it's like this kind of gives a reflection of who I am or who I want to be. And this is more of an empty version of what I'm asking you to do, but I want to kind of give you the foundation. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated design wise. It doesn't have to look like this, and it can be complicated. You can choose to make it more visually dynamic if you want, but the key is more about really looking at what are these things that circle you, what are these attributes. And I have like 8 of them here. It doesn't have to be 8. It can be whatever number you want, but in a way that too few is not going to be enough, and too many might be too hard to dissect. So 8's not bad, 10's not bad. It could be more. I wouldn't do like 3 or 5. I would keep it higher than that. And when doing this, think about it. Maybe even talk to your family or friends, and maybe take some surveys about how they see you, because that really is where your brand lies. It lies in their minds, not really yours so much. So hear what others have to say, and try to get it to this perfect mix of attributes that define you. And then visually, you might I think we'll all find it easier to create the visual version of this, or maybe not, I don't know, but I think finding different images that are inspiring to you or that kind of speak to you in a way that maybe you can't get in words are important. So creating a good grid, and I just made a grid here. It doesn't have to be like fill in these blanks literally. If you want to, you can use it. It's not a bad grid, but I want you guys to kind of do your thing. And let me show you some actual examples from other classes that I kind of pulled out. And here you can see literally what we're talking about. On the left side, there are 6 attributes, which, you know, is, like I said, it could be more. The name isn't here, so it'd be nice if your name was sort of in the center circle. But it's nicely designed. It's got a little bit of flair to it, but it's also just trying to focus on the content. And then on the right side, you have what this person's kind of visual version of their design is. And you see here, there's art, there's abstract textures and colors and typography in kind of specific ways. And it's a little more on the design side. It's not like interiors or clothes, but it could be, you know, it's up to you. But try to think about this in terms of like how will some of the attributes I identify and some of the visual inspirations that connect to those attributes, how can they be helpful to me when I begin to turn my eyes towards New York City as a goal? So that's going to be the next step, in fact. But let's take a look at a few more of these. Like I said, you can make these in a way that are modernist and simple, and you don't have to suffer about the typography if you don't want, in terms of the mind map here. But you can make it more dynamic and more reflective of your design style or your art style. And again, as you can see with these 2 pieces, they kind of work together nicely, and her inspiration and design reflects back on her mind map. And just a few more to give you a good variety of what's possible. And you know, we're seeing more of a design, and in a cool way, a design typographic expression. But that's not the key. The key is more like understanding yourself and getting the right words that are going to kind of circle you. And here's just one more that is a little more straightforward in terms of the typography and colors, and which works just great with a visual mood board that speaks to who this person is in a visual way. Okay, so this is the main thing that for sure I want everyone to do. I want everyone to be ready in class with your version of this as a way to even introduce yourself further to your students and to the teachers. But the next step from there, which you can begin from home, but you can also begin before we meet for the first time on Tuesday, is to start defining New York City from your own perspective, and kind of take inventory of what you're valuing, what you're admiring, what's inspiring you as you think about what the New York City brand is to you right now at this very moment before you arrive. And then as you get there, what are the things that start to come up to the top? So keep a journal, make notes, shoot photographs, start finding a way to control and quantify the feelings and the impressions you're getting. This is a really important, good skill to cultivate. Find the way that works for you. You know, maybe just using your social media and posting and writing and then looking at it. But basically the goal is the same. We want you to create the 2 pieces that you just did for yourself. We want to create a mind map that outlines your impressions, and the key word here is yours. And I want you to kind of, well, it could be yours, but it could be the ones that we all know about. But we're working towards getting the idea of New York City from you, from how you see it as a unique individual. So we'll want a mind map and a visual mood board that attracts, that it will attract you and the target audience. And I just realized I have not talked about the target audience. So let's just take a moment here and talk about that target audience. We'll talk more about this when you're in class. But basically what we're doing here, because we have a branding process that's condensed into a small space, we want to sort of look at each of you as key members of our own target audience for the goal of this class. So the target audience, you might say, are young people, maybe people in school, maybe new professionals, but young people that are like you, that are not from here, that are interested in coming and are and have the means to come and have specific goals, whether it's for school or for their craft, for their trade, or for their career. And so the target audience is sort of this global young person who's interested in making maybe their first big move to a new city, maybe for school, maybe for work. And you want to create a campaign that will attract people to take that first big leap towards New York City as their destination. So your target audience in a way is you. And when you're creating this, we're going to ask you maybe to further the target audience on your own. Like if you want to say, my target audience not only is a young person who's interested in coming to New York City and they're at the beginning of their career or at the beginning of their university experience, but I want to create one that attracts people who are interested in music or who are interested in food or the arts. So you'll have control of this aspect of the target audience where you can dial it whichever way that works within this idea of young people coming to New York City. All right, so this is, again, the idea of what you want to do. So we're going to have kind of two pairs of mood boards, one that reflects yourself and one reflects New York City through this kind of mind map idea and this visual mood board. And this next step is what we'll mostly do, I think, in class, in the first class. But once we get these two mood boards together, and I'll just jump ahead, we're going to take what you learned about yourself and what you learned about New York City, and then try to create a fusion of the two that we'll call My New York City, or better said, Your New York City, and to take the overlapping attributes or hybrid them together into new attributes so that you can create a revised version of the New York City mind map that you created that becomes a little more deepened towards your values. And then the same with the visual mood board. And maybe these won't be that different than what you do with this NYC version, but I think that doing it in this process will give us the chance to take that one step further. That might give us the key kernel, that key piece of insight that's going to help really define our campaign and our brand in the way that will make it unique. And really, and you might find that, like, why do we have to do this? I already have an idea, and believe me, I was that student. But I think it's really important because first, we want to acknowledge that there's nothing scarier to a designer, to an artist, than a blank sheet of paper, and you're needing to fill that sheet of paper with a brilliant idea. And we think that fear is actually healthy and good, and having that little, what am I going to do, feeling in your stomach, that's the sort of motivation that leads to great things. And if we have a process that doesn't involve wandering around in panic, if we have a process as simple as you may find it, or as basic as you may find it, this process is going to help us to get to the place where we're in the mindset, we're relaxed, we're able to have conversations together without having to compare whether I or the other teacher doesn't like the design or not. It's going to be about understanding what you're trying to say. And then the keys in this conversation is going to be for the words that we share together to something to come out of our mouths, and we grab it and say, this is the idea, this is the thing we wanted to do. And you'll find that when that happens, then you have direction, and you have the path that appears before you. So that's kind of the goal of doing these things. It's to be able to have this conversation when we meet, and to kind of accelerate it by having you guys work on this while you're at home, and while you're arriving here and traveling here. And then when we get together, we'll have a good part of this already started, and we'll have that kind of inertia going. All right, so in doing this, we also want to encourage, in the research you're doing and the photography you're doing, we want to kind of begin to create a shared collaborative mood board just through Instagram, and doing that through this hashtag. If each of you, even starting right now, take a selfie. In fact, I insist that you take a selfie right now and post on Instagram. And then I think it would be great if each of you would go beyond that first selfie and then continue to document your impressions, your journey, so that we begin to create this mosaic of everyone everyone's personal experience, but brought together as an experience of this small, unique group that's coming together. So let's utilize the miracle media that we have in our pockets and in our hands to create a little micro community among us and be able to also use it as a tool for research and inspiration and a way to get to know each other and collaborate better. All right, so that's the briefing for now. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll put my email in the description, and Anita is going to also be teaching with me together, and we'll include her email as well. And again, just looking forward to meeting each of you and having these great 2 weeks together to create something that will be difficult but rewarding, and will really give you the basis for having further confidence in the work you do, and then be able to have each of you leave back to home with a new set of tools and a further understanding of how this wonderful career of design that we're all part of, how you can better live that. So thanks each, and I'm looking forward to see you soon.